Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Rick Brattin, 31st Senate District, Cass, Bates, and Johnson County. Bringing forth before you Senate Bill 858. This is SEPA 2.0. I know this committee has heard this bill in its original format, and with this new iteration. After the 8th Circuit, this was challenged. We passed this. We spent a lot of sweat equity and capital on Second Amendment Preservation Act to get through the process and the governor signing it. And it was challenged, went through the 8th Circuit, and they did find it to be unconstitutional. But in their opinion as to why they ruled in such a manner, they spelled out what their problems were in explicit detail. And it necessarily wasn't the mechanism, the enforcement, or really the impetus behind the anti-commandeering doctrine that it really truly is. They just found issue with how granular in the prohibitions of what law enforcement and how they can aid and come alongside federal agents in the gun confiscation or any sort of federal gun confiscation laws. So the bill before you, I know it looks like it's all new language, but if you look to the back of it, you'll see there's several pages of deleted. It's all blacked out. What they wanted to do is move that from the old section, and they moved it into the new section. So it looks like it's all new language, and it's not. I can go over just briefly. I know we've got a lot of testimony against, and I know we have caucus, so I'll make it as brief as I possibly can. But if you turn to, let me see, page 4. If you go to section, it's at the bottom paragraph, section 1.451. This is the real true nuts and bolts of why the courts ruled that they did, is because it really spelled out exactly what officers in Missouri could not do. So this basically just broadened the terminology to make sure it fell in line with what the courts had ruled. So that paragraph of that 1451 down to the page 5 to line 9, it was just revised to broaden the scope of that our law enforcement isn't going to aid and abet and gun confiscation. So that was that. There's a civil penalty of $50,000 that remains. The hiring practices of those who have knowingly aided in gun confiscation and the hiring practices, that's always been contentious, but that is there, and I believe it's rightfully so. Needs to be there. If we have officers that are willing to circumvent the oath that they take in protecting constitutional rights, but instead are infringing upon them, we don't need to be hiring officers. I don't care how willing they are to serve in that capacity. Now, there is a provision on page 7. I know there's a lot of pushback on military, because let's be real, I served in the military, so did Senator Weber. There are already gun-free zones in our military bases. You're not allowed unless you have explicit permission. It's an onerous process in terms of even having. A lot of people don't know that you're not able to unless you go to the armory and they literally issue it out to you. But this puts in a buffer in ensuring that we're able to hire military MPs or so on and so forth. This does not apply to felons, so we're protecting law-abiding citizens' Second Amendment rights. So if they're felons, they already should not have firearms. Can be fully and totally taken and apprehended and charged and put away as they rightfully should. Same with illegals. They have no right to own firearms and should be prosecuted accordingly. And then I'll try to get to the last provision. This is probably where you're going to hear the most, where this is impeding and mutual aid and the capability to come alongside our federal partners. But when we're talking about federal prosecutions against persons, where they're committing felonies of crimes against other persons, armed robbery, so on and so forth, this does nothing to impede them from having task force in terms of actual crimes with firearms, and they can work with one another. Same with narcotics and federal felonies in terms of distribution and working on those sorts of task force. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there saying that this just completely denies the capability of law enforcement and ties their hands where they can't do that. No, this is if they're knowingly going and they're infringing on Second Amendment rights, and we're putting a stop to that. Again, this body spent a ton of sweat, equity, and capital in passing this to protect our Second Amendment rights. And I think it's just our due diligence to remedy and fix the discrepancies that the courts found and make sure that we're protecting those Second Amendment rights. Again, not trying to belabor or I know we have a lot of people, but I would absolutely be happy to answer any questions that you may have.